Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Murphy, and I'm one of the co-founders of Sojourner Glamping. Over the last couple of months, I've had a lot of questions from folks on my backstory, especially my time in Ghana. And I had the opportunity to give a few presentations in Greene County that were really well received, and most people felt that we should find a way for other folks to hear that. So this is a recorded presentation attempt to do that. You might see in the background, it's a 3D rendering we just released of the property in Greene County. This is Sojourner. I'll show you a bit more on that later. But with no further ado, let's just get into the talk, and then we will take it from there. So this is a talk that I first gave in Calgary in 2019 called What Do Marathons Have to Do with Entrepreneurship? It was really just a talk I was trying to give about the adventure I went through in creating Zana Lodge and Mully's National Park. This talk is a little bit more than just that time in Ghana. But I always like to start with this particular picture because it's my absolute favorite, because this is a shot of an elephant actually drinking water from the swimming pool that I took myself. And we built this particular building. This is the main lodge to American Disability Act standards. And there's a wheelchair ramp, which unbeknownst to us is perfect for elephants to come and walk. And really, one of the most special things of Zana Lodge is that there's elephants there all the time. This is a different elephant drinking from below the infinity pool. That wall that you see here is the wall that the waterfall from the pool comes over, and this particular guy would come and drink there. I used to get to have my daughters with me in the summers of 2017 and 2018, and this is a shot of Chloe, my youngest daughter, with that same elephant coming at a different time. My son Joseph was actually born in Ghana, and during one of my visits, we got to see this. This is out front of one of the rooms at Zana as well. And then finally, this is my absolute favorite picture. This is just a stunningly gorgeous shot that shows this elephant sitting on our deck and with nothing but the savannah inside the park as far as the eye can see. Just a really beautiful shot. This talk really covers 4 different things that covered my life or influenced my life. One was running. I've actually been running since 1998, so 34 years now. I started in high school. I've run about 17 marathons. I'm currently training to try and qualify for the Boston Marathon, which this is a shot of when I turn 50 next year. So that's the goal. We'll see if it happens. Another big part of my life has been living in Ghana. I've lived in Ghana 10 of the last 24 years, starting in 1998 when I went there as a US Peace Corps volunteer, lived there 6 years then. Then I went back to the US for business school and work, and finally raised money to start Zana Lodge in 2014 and went back to Ghana for another 4 years. So Ghana's had a big influence on me. The other is Peace Corps, and I know this is a shot of elephants, but Peace Corps was a huge influence in my life in terms of how I look at the world and my desire to have an impact. And my first project in Peace Corps was to work on a project where farmers and communities were getting attacked, their farms were getting attacked by elephants. And I worked with a team to help figure that out, amongst other things. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And then finally was my time at Georgetown, where I went in 1991 as an undergraduate. And for folks in Central Virginia, that's the first time I really came to the Virginia area as well. Profoundly big impact for me because the Jesuits at Georgetown really have a focus on service, and I didn't appreciate it at the time how much that impacted me. But the other funny thing about Georgetown was that's really where I got my entrepreneurial start. It all started back at Georgetown, and an interesting fact about Georgetown is it's the home to the largest student-run corporation in the world called Students of Georgetown. And Students of Georgetown started back in the 70s during protests around the Vietnam War in the US. There were protesters outside the front gates of Georgetown at the gates of 37th and O. And the police chased those protesters onto the campus. The protesters ran into the dorms and the police arrested them. And the student government didn't think that was right. So they incorporated themselves so they could sue the school. They actually won that lawsuit, but then they had an incorporated status and they weren't quite sure what they wanted to do with that. So they started a company called the Corp, Students of Georgetown Incorporated, completely student run from all of the management all the way up to the board of directors. It's been that way for 50 years now, just had their anniversary. It was my work study job. I went to Georgetown heavily on student financial aid, a lot of borrowing, and this was my work study job. By my sophomore year, I applied to run one of their seasonal services called Corp Shipping and Storage. I did that. The next year I applied to be president and I became the president. And during that time, the university was looking to open up its first coffee house on the campus. This is in 1994. So imagine it's before the coffee revolution in the US. And the university did not think that students could run a student-run coffee house. And so what does Andy do back then? He looks up the yellow pages because there really wasn't much internet. And I found a company in Bethesda that was building coffee carts. And they helped me over the course of the summer of 1994 train 10 Georgetown students how to make lattes and other things. And so when we went to present to the dean of students, who's featured in this picture, who thought that students couldn't run a coffee house, we actually rolled a coffee machine into the meeting and made drinks for everyone there. And well, needless to say, we won it. That was a really stressful time. It's really learned all the ins and outs of trying to be an entrepreneur, not really knowing what the rules were. But this is a shot of Dean Donahue and I, this is a much younger me, toasting the opening of Uncommon Grounds. And what's great for me about Uncommon Grounds is it's been open for 20 something years now, and has employed at least 30 students a year every year since then, and has also spawned at least 3 other coffee houses run by the Corp. So it's been an impact of a result of just creating a lot of jobs on campus. And it's just something that I love to do, is come back there every year. And I didn't know at the time, but that's really where my entrepreneurial spirit started from. I want to talk a little bit more now about Ghana and let that the lodge background, and then I'll kind of walk you back through my story as well. This is a shot I took on the property. A couple things to note here is nature is really important to us. So we kept all the trees as much as possible in place, including trees in the walkway. If I showed you a picture of this walkway today, this tree right here would be gone because the elephants knocked it down and ate the roots. This elephant was walking towards me. This is room 12, which is one over from the main building. Another interesting thing for folks in the US, who use body products, if you ever use anything with shea butter, this is a shea leaf. Shea only grows in the wild in West Africa. That grows as a nut that gets crushed into what becomes shea butter. And not only is it good for your skin, but elephants love it as well. Little geography lesson for folks who don't know where Ghana is. Ghana is a tiny little English-speaking country surrounded by former French-speaking colonies in West Africa. It's about the size of the state of Oregon on its side, if you kind of look at this. The national park where Zana is located is Mole National Park. It's the largest park in Ghana. If it was in the US, it would be only smaller than Yellowstone and the Everglades, so bigger than the Grand Canyon and any other park in the continental US, not the parks in Alaska. When I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I was way up here where the A and T come together. And then I lived for a while on the projects I'm going to tell you about in the city of Bolgatanga. I've also lived in the capital, Accra. When people want to get to the lodge in Ghana, they take a 1-hour flight up to Tamale, which is the 3rd largest city in Ghana. It's also where I met my wife, Nestor. And then it's a 2.5-hour drive to Mole National Park. So that just gives you a sense of Ghana. One of the things I love about the park is in this location is there are no fences. The beauty of not having fences is that wildlife are free to roam. So you could walk out of your room and happen to see a warthog. There's a lot of other types of antelopes. The antelopes don't always make it onto the campus because some of them are more shy, like these. The roan antelope, fully grown roan, is the size of a horse. The cob, which are here, actually are featured on the property. They are the most common antelope in Ghana and West Africa. They're kind of like the impala, if you know antelope in East and South Africa. They're like the impala of West Africa, but these are the cob. Water bucks here are my favorite. Interesting story about both these species of antelope is they need to live within a certain distance of a water body. And so with the water holes that we created near the lodge for the elephants, we've meaningfully increased the populations of both of these species as a result. A lot of baboons. One of the interesting things that people talk about in Central Virginia is dealing with bears, especially near Shenandoah National Park. The biggest challenging species around food and human presence in Ghana are baboons. Much smarter than bears, and they have hands that can open doors. So we've had to create at Zana very religious waste management and food management policy just to make sure that these baboons stay wild and don't become interested in human food, and we have been successful with that. Water buffalo, really hard to see, but a really beautiful and amazing species when you get a chance to see them. There's hyenas at night. One of the beauties of staying in a safari tent overnight is you can hear the hyenas calling at night, and it's a really special experience. And then this is one of my favorite shots that I know will freak somebody out, but this is just to help everyone understand, is a python with its mouth extended more than 180 degrees, swallowing what is probably a medium-sized either water buck or cob antelope. I can tell by the water here that it's probably the height of the rainy season, so this is probably the end of September in the park. This is one of my favorite shots. This is a shot of the place where our main lodge is today, taken back in the summer of 2012. It was a grassy hillside overlooking this beautifully gorgeous view. When I walk to our site on Mutton Hollow and Green, and I can see how beautiful that property is, and I know what it can become. It evokes some of the same memories and feelings for me. And we took that grassy hillside and we turned it into that. That's a shot from our main lodge where you saw the elephant drinking over here earlier. at sunset facing west. And it's just a beautifully gorgeous view. This is my favorite shot taken by a friend, because when you have a pool in the right direction, you get these mirrored shots at sunset, which is just everyone's favorite experience. This is just another shot of the lodge. So we built the largest thatch roof structure in all of northern Ghana. This is the main building with rooms, walkways to the tents and the kitchen here. This is just another shot. This shows you the elephant waterhole that we built. It's actually 4.5 meters deep with 45-degree angle slopes for elephants, but there is nothing near us but national parks. So it's one of the most spectacular views that I've ever seen. And these are some of the rooms, which you'll see in a bit more. This is a better shot that shows you the full length. The whole property is 1 kilometer from end to end. I actually, during my time as Safari Lodge manager, I actually ran the property from 2016 to 2018. I lived in this little house way up here. So my biggest commuting problem was walking between the main building for our morning meetings at 8 and here and dodging elephants, essentially. We had a staff canteen and staff break rooms up here, accounting office, and then 13 rooms on this side and another 12 here. And then the 2 rooms on either side were wheelchair accessible. And this is another shot just to show you what it looks like. All the rooms, the idea was every room should have a view of the water holes and the sunset. These are tented rooms that you'll see later, but because it gets to about 110 degrees Fahrenheit in April in the hot season, the thatch actually helps keep the entire place cool, although they're air conditioned as well. I want to talk a little bit about just the overall experience, but this is the shot at night. And the idea is we wanted to be as natural and as local as possible while still offering a luxury experience to people. And one of my favorite views was the lodge at night. And the other thing is to really show that you can have luxury mimicked with local architecture. So the designs on the property were done by women from outside the park in the village of Larabanga. It's actually home to the oldest mosque in West Africa. It's turned 600 years old this year. They came and did this traditional plastering work for us. All the stone came from inside the park, and then we used about 7,000 bundles of grass and tried to show a really traditional thatch roof structure that is local to that area. Wanted to make sure people had a great experience. So this is the bar, one of my favorite places. We called it the Z Bar for Zena. Interesting thing here is all the roofing structures we use are made out of teak, and we bought the teak from smallholder plantations all over northern Ghana. So trying to give as much money to local folks. All of these members here are natural teak wood as well. And then the other thing was to have a really cool gift shop that featured items from the northern part of Ghana and northern West Africa. And the idea is giving as many opportunities for local entrepreneurs and folks to sell their products, from baskets in Bolgatanga to a local guy who is making miniatures of the mosque, to women from Sirigu and their paintings, to a local company that makes their own soap. So all the soaps in the lodge, in the gift shop, but also in the rooms are made from this group called Tama, which makes all of their soap out of the shea butter that I talked about earlier. I imagine in Greene County and Sojourner that we would try and do the same thing and feature as many local products as possible. I want to tell a little bit about the entry experience. So one of the biggest challenges with opening the highest rated property in northern Ghana ever in a place where there hadn't been one is that the people who are going to work there have never been to, let alone work for a high-end lodge. So I worked with a management company that got me some really skilled folks from India who had managed and run high-end safari lodges before. So they gave us the director of operations, the chef, our food and beverage manager, and then not featured here is also the original GM. And then we were able to hire a few people from hotels in the capital. And then we hired an entirely brand new team of staff with no experience and really train them to learn to really run a high-end service operation. One of the things I'm most proud of is we started this property with 5 expatriates running it with a new Ghanaian team. And today there's a Kenyan gentleman as the manager, and the entire rest of the team is that Ghanaian team. So really showing people how to take control and lead something. When you first show up at this lodge, you'll have people coming out to welcome you, usually not the entire team like this, but we make sure that we welcome every single vehicle that enters the property. And then you're walking through this really cool covered thatch walkway, which was an inspiration from a lodge in Kenya that we saw. And the idea behind this walkway is that you should be leaving behind wherever you came from, whether it was a stressful work life, whether it was a long, dusty road to get to the lodge or whatever it is. But the idea is you're entering a new space. So you're walking through this walkway, and then you come into what we call the cathedral, which is this amazingly beautiful room with this massive wall that's actually supporting the entire structure, really well decorated. There's some more sculptures here today. Our gift shop and the decorated wall is here. And then as you walk around this corner to go see where the pool is, our staff are going to give you a welcome drink in a local calabash. It's kind of like a salty lemonade. Especially if you've been hot, they'll give you a cold towel as well to cool off. And then you're going to see this view. And if everything has worked out well and God has been so kind, you're going to see elephants at the water hole as well. And if we get that entry experience right, people just have an amazing time. We'll tend to forgive any other mistakes you make along the way. And it was always fun for me to see people experiencing our place for the first time. And I can picture myself sitting in Greene County, seeing people come to the Sojourner for the first time as well, and just being really blown away by that. Just to talk a little bit about the room, all of our rooms are tented rooms with a permanent bathroom structure. So the tents are backed up onto that structure. The tent company that I use for this lodge in Ghana, we now have a national exclusivity deal with them to do properties in the US, so same tent company. We like their product because it's the best product made in the world. It's double-walled canvas and insulated, so that allows you to either heat or cool it quite efficiently, more akin to a standard house than what you would think of as a tent. And it doesn't feel like a tent inside. It feels like a luxury hotel room. This is the back wall that leads to, there's a door behind here that leads to the bathroom. We did a different type of art on the headboard wall here, all locally designed and hand-carved furniture. We do have internet in the rooms as well as a satellite TV as well. And then every room has basically a 8-foot balcony overlooking the water holes as well. This is just a shot of when we were building Zana, of the women doing the work. This was just great to involve the community as much as possible. This was sometime back in 2015, I believe, and the women are now just coming back this year to do a refresh on this work in 2022. I consider myself more than anything else a developer of talent and people. So yes, I'm proud of the lodge. I'm proud that the lodge is the highest rated property by a landslide on TripAdvisor and those things. But what I'm more excited about is the lives that were impacted. And this is one of my favorite photos at the time of creating Zana. This was when we finished the construction job and we gave everyone who was part of the team a t-shirt, and we took a lot of group photos. This is zoomed in, not the whole team. But these are some of the women you saw doing the decorations. This is my good friend Alex Ayiti, who is the local architect who designed and built Zana for us. This gentleman is Suli. He actually still works for us. He works at the bar, makes really mean mojitos, although he's a Muslim and does not drink, but makes great cocktails. Senior here is part of the maintenance team. And then Aisha was with us, but then she left to go on to pharmacy school, which is great. I mean, we love to see people pursuing their education. This is the spear wall that they have right near our library in the main building. And the reason why we did this is that the people of Valera Bongo, where the mosque is, were the spiritual advisors to the Gonjas, who were a warrior tribe. They did a lot of conquering back in the day. And given that we had designed the entire lodge in the style of their spiritual advisors, we felt it was important to have this spear wall as both a kind of tribute to an homage to their warrior past, but also their hunting past as well. We felt that was really important to reflect the local culture and history. Anything I do at Sojourner will be no different. I'll tell you 2 quick stories. This is my son, Joseph, who is almost 2, but this is when he was a baby. This is Chef David, who was our first employee at Zana. Chef was a great guy. He was a sous chef in a major hotel, high-end hotel in the capital. He came and joined our team and worked under our first 2 executive chefs for the first 3 or 4 years of the property. Eventually, he became our executive chef. And about a year ago, 9 months to a year ago, he informed me that someone had hired him to go back to Accra and that he wanted to move closer to where his family was. And I told him, look, Dave, you helped us get started. You helped put us on the map. I have no animosity. You've done an amazing job. If you ever need any recognition or help or recommendation letters, I'd be happy to do it. And that's the way I see it. I see the idea is that I should be able to take someone who has a certain skill base and raise them up to an international world-class standard that someone will want to hire him. And I don't, or him or her, and I don't see that as a loss to us. I see that as a service that I'm providing by helping develop local talent into world-class status. He actually got hired by an architect named David Ajay, who's a world-famous Ghanaian architect. For those of you in the DC area, David Ajay is the one that designed the African-American Smithsonian Museum. So not a bad place for David to land. And my favorite story is this gentleman, Magnus. Magnus was one of the first beneficiaries of a scholarship scheme we created in the park before the lodge was built. The idea was that anyone who wanted to study natural resource management, hospitality, or ecotourism could have their education paid for. They had to be recommended by local elders from the community. Magnus was the first beneficiary of that scholarship scheme. And during his breaks from school, he would come and work at the Zana construction site. When he finished school, Ghana requires that all people who graduate from high school and tertiary programs do national service. So he did his national service with us. And then when he graduated, we hired him to work in our front office. During the time that Magnus was there, when I was actually running the lodge, he came up to me and wanted to pursue his undergraduate and then his master's, with the idea that he would work during the week, go to school in the city on the weekends, and push through. We actually gave him a bit of a scholarship, but he finished both of those degrees. And today Magnus is the food and beverage manager of the lodge, and he's about to work on his PhD. And so when I think of this story and what we've been able to do with so many people at Zana, I think of what we could do in Greene County and other places. I would love to see some young person at the Greene County Technical Center come and join Sojourner, and go up through the ranks, and then maybe go off to work in a world-class property somewhere else, or go somewhere else. I mean, that's really where I get my energy from, is helping young talent develop and find out kind of what their path in life is going to be. And I just want to end the Zana's portion with this. It took a whole community of folks for us to create Zana. I say it takes a village to raise a brand, and these are just a lot of the different pictures. I could spend time in just telling a story about just about every single picture here. But what I'm already starting to feel as I go to Greene County and I spend my time there and making a lot of friends is we're already starting to build that village for Sojourner as well. And I look forward to the day we get to tell that entire story as well. And it kind of sideways back to my journey, like how did I even end up in Ghana? So I told you guys I went to Peace Corps in 1998. After Georgetown, I had been a change management consultant for Accenture in DC. And the disconnect for me is I just didn't feel like I was making an impact or doing anything that was making people's lives better. So I walked away from a decent paying job. It was the first time I did that, but not the last, because making money is not what drives me. It's being connected to helping people out. So when I first came to Peace Corps, I was given kind of a job from my boss then, who became my business partner later on. First one was, hey, we think there's potential for ecotourism in this particular area, so we want you to go and explore. So this is actually me in a wooden canoe that I had a budget to build with my best friend George, who's a hunter, and we were on the White Volta River for a 3-day trip, basically eating rice with whatever fish we got from the river or whatever meat we got from George's gun. The main job I had was to work with the communities along the Red Volta River Valley who were getting impacted by elephants that would migrate in and out of Burkina Faso and destroy crops. And so we created a team and a system to help those chiefs. These are all the chiefs of the 8 communities, 4 on each side of the Red Volta River. This is my best friend, George, who is my best friend to this day. We were much younger then. This is a shot from 1999. And we got to work and successfully reduce the impact of elephants on these communities. We actually published a paper with the African Elephant Specialist Group. It is the only scientific paper that I have my name on, and probably will never have another one again. And then the other thing was there was a women's farming association that made shea butter, but the women were also rice and onion farmers. And part of my remit was to figure out how to help these women make more money. And that's what I did. And we had a really good time doing it. These are just some shots in Peace Corps just to show that I've lived at all kinds of different levels. My water was stored in this blue tank. I washed my dishes in buckets. During my 3rd year in Peace Corps, I moved to a different house and decided I needed to have a motorcycle. This bike was 18 years old at the time. For motorcycle lovers, that's a Suzuki 100. Love this bike. I moved to this house because it had a toilet you could sit on. And it turns out in this house, although I had running water for 3 hours a day and lights from a generator at night, turns out that if you had to choose between electricity and a toilet you can sit on versus a pit latrine, you'll choose the sit-down toilet every day of the week and twice on Sunday. This was my garden where I raised my own lettuce and other things, but this just gives you a shot of how rural my Peace Corps setting was. This is a local house in northern Ghana with a thatched roof and farm fields near me. And this is probably my favorite picture ever from my time in Peace Corps. This is right at the end of my service. I'd worked with a lot of the friends in the community to create a community race day. And so what we did is the next community over was about 5 miles away. So we did a 5-mile running race, a 5-mile biking race, and a 5-mile walking race. And this particular picture was the walking race. I had already done the running race. I think I took 3rd behind 2 kids. This was Ben, our local veterinarian. This is Mosa Naba, who was the station chief for the transport yard. This guy was the son of the bishop of the Anglican Church. And this was Barnabas, the local bar owner stroke Red Cross guy. And the 2 of these guys had been boasting about who was going to win the race. So this was just a really fun day. What's sad when I see this picture is, aside from me, everyone else in this picture has passed on, but it just, it was a wonderful time in my life. I really became hugely involved with everyone there. I stay in touch with quite a few people from this community, even to this very day. Story I mentioned earlier, my boss who gave me the job assignment. I had the fortunate opportunity to work for a really important visionary. His name is John Mason. He's a Canadian, but he was born in northern Nigeria. So he's more like a Nigerian in a white man's body. His parents were missionaries, so that's what brought him to Nigeria. He started Ghana's first ever conservation nonprofit. And so by the time I showed up to Peace Corps, he was working on community-based conservation and tourism all over Ghana. I was using Peace Corps volunteers to help move that project forward. One of the crazy things about John, aside from being the godfather of ecotourism in Ghana, is he once rode a motorcycle, this particular motorcycle, I think it was a 600cc, all the way from Paris to Accra across the Sahara Desert. So needless to say, he was pretty crazy and adventurous. John came to me in the middle of Peace Corps and said, "Hey, Andy, I'm trying to get money from the US government to work with communities all over Ghana. Can you help me out? They told me they won't give me any money, and they gave me a really long rejection list." So he basically bribed me as a Peace Corps volunteer, which meant he took me to his house in the city of Bolgatanga and gave me an air-conditioned room, which is worth its weight in gold to a Peace Corps volunteer living in the village with no electricity. He gave me food from his chef and satellite TV, and we worked on the proposal, and lo and behold, it got funded. We got about $900,000 from USAID to work on community-based tourism, and I made up a position in that proposal called the Northern Coordinator. So I ended up funding myself to live in Ghana another 3 years after my 3 years in Peace Corps. So that's why I was there 6 years. And we work with communities all over Ghana that had some kind of an indigenous belief system behind conservation, whether it was the first hippo sanctuary ever established in northern Ghana, to Ghana's first monkey sanctuary, to a place in northern Ghana where they believe their ancestors came back as crocodiles and people could swim in the water with crocodiles, called the Paga Crocodile Ponds, to a place that's more like the Flintstones in real life than anything you ever see, a village called Tenzuk that has a sacred shrine. They would have a special festival every year right before the farming season and would wear traditional clothes for the entire month. And so this gentleman here was the elected assemblyman at the time. It's kind of like a state representative. And he's now today the chief, but at this time he would dress up, and he was dressed up like this, would come pick me up about 18 kilometers away in the city on his red Honda motorcycle, and we would go lobby the local government so we could put a Peace Corps in one of their education houses. So that was quite an adventure as well. I decided at about 6 years that I was dangerously close to being the expat who could never leave Ghana. I knew I wanted to do my own things, and I was going to need a strong brand behind me to do that. So I threw a Hail Mary pass back and applied to a few MBA programs in the US, Wharton in Pennsylvania that I did not get into, but I did get into Harvard Business School. And that really allowed me some time to one, attest to my commitment to Ghana, but also to kind of figure out long-term what kind of separate business I wanted to be. And I got to do 3 things while I was there. One was in the summer of 2005, I did an internship with the National Park Service. I actually lived on the premises of Valley Forge National Park, next to the house that the Marquis de Lafayette lived in during the winter encampment when he was supporting Washington, and wrote a business plan for Valley Forge National Park. I learned a lot about park budgeting and those kind of issues, invasive species, which are really relevant these days for Virginia as well. During the time that I was back in business school, John Mason, who I talked about earlier, was working with the Ghana government to see if Ghana could open up its national parks to concessions like other parks in East and West Africa had. So we knew that we were looking to try and do a lodge in Ghana, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But one of my ways of trying to learn the safari industry was I, as the white American kid, rolled into the Africa Business Club at Harvard and offered to run all of their safari trips in the year of 2006. So I took 42 MBA students to South Africa. In February 2006, I took another 42 to Tanzania then as well. This is actually a shot of a lion on the car trying to get some reprieve from the wounds and the flies in the middle of the Ngorongoro crater. Interesting thing about these trips is they were really the genesis of Sojourner, because my business partner Dionis and his wife joined my South Africa trip. So that was kind of where all of those things started from as well. Interestingly enough, on this Tanzania trip, these are some of the business school students on my trip. These are our cars. These are the exact same vehicles we now use at the lodge in Ghana. So this was my first time to kind of test those out. Really fantastic Toyota Land Cruiser snorkel vehicles, can pretty much drive anywhere. I really miss driving those. During that summer 2006, that May, after those trips, I then went back to Ghana to work on a feasibility study for putting a 12-room lodge in Ghana's largest national park. Realized then that there's no way a 12-room lodge, or even frankly a 40-room lodge, ever makes any money. Really, for a hotel operation to be successful, you need to be above 80 rooms. But these gentlemen were part of that crew. What I love is this guy here has been friends for 30 years. His name is James Brima. We hired him from the wildlife division to go manage the hippo sanctuary I talked about earlier. He and I are friends to this day. This is Zach, who still works in the park. He actually is the lead birding guide for anyone who wants to see birds in West Africa as well. After business school, I worked on writing the business plan for the lodge. I actually wrote the business plan for Zana Lodge as the final paper in an emerging markets real estate class and mailed that off to Ghana. We got a lot of traction, but we were really naive on how quickly we could raise the money. We thought we'd do it in 6 months. Turns out it took about 6.5 years. I decided to do a leadership fellows program, which is a program where Harvard Business School pays half your salary to go work at a nonprofit for the year. So I joined the World Wildlife Fund, and I figured that I couldn't be doing the lodge in Ghana. Working globally all over the world with the World Wildlife Fund was the next best thing I could do. I ended up working on their sustainable commodities program, and again became a developer of talent, because what you found at WWF at the time is if you had somebody who knew how to speak to companies, they were fundraisers, not people who could talk about supply chain. So I focused my energies on building teams all over the world that could work with companies on their supply chains and on their impacts on the environment. So every red star is a place I got to live. Mainly I was based in Arlington, Virginia, working at their office in Washington, D.C. But in 2010, I lived in the city of Amsterdam for 6 months and worked with our offices all over Europe. And then early 2011, moved to Beijing, China, and was living there for 8 months, working out of the Forbidden City, because that's where WWF's office was, and riding my bike all over Beijing, and got to work all over Asia as well. But I did a lot in Brazil and other places. I used to tell people, if not for the fact that I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, which was starting this lodge in Ghana, I loved the job that I was doing. But I got to a point where I knew that if I didn't quit this job and focus full-time on the lodge in Ghana, it was never going to happen. So I did that in 2013. And then moved over to Ghana full-time in 2014. Started construction of the lodge in 2013. This is actually the truck that left the city of Accra to go build the lodge. We called it the handcrafted lodge. So this is a cement mixer, a couple student mattresses, a machine to kind of tamp down the soils, and then a large tank for water. And this is the team that went and built the lodge. I moved over full-time in 2014. And then we got the lodge open by the end of 2015. So that was really an amazing experience. The hardest part for me about starting Zana was I did it without my family. I thought that my ex and my kids were going to move over with me. It turns out that did not happen. My daughters, Chloe, are now 13 and 9. When I left for Ghana, they were 5 and 1.5 respectively. And so I wanted to be closer to them and be back to where they live with their mother in Arlington. I ended up getting a gig at the Philadelphia Zoo, doing strategy work for their chief executive officer, Vic Dewan. And he hired me because of my background and skills, and the idea was to help them create a mission strategy. So I did that for 2 years. And the interesting thing is, right up before COVID started, I was about to become their chief mission officer, which was a role that was going to combine their community engagement, their education, their conservation work, and their sustainability work into one role. The challenge was that interview was the 3rd week in March 2020, right when the world shut down for COVID. And it turns out I was the only non-full-time employee. I was a consultant, only non-full-time employee on the senior leadership team at the zoo. And so when they shut down, they had to cancel that contract. So that's when I went back to Arlington to help my kids with their virtual schooling since their schools closed. And it's around that time that my business school classmate Dionis called up and said, "Hey, Andy, I'm considering looking at glamping. You're the only guy I ever known that's done glamping. So what do you say?" And of course I said, "Let's rock and roll." And that's what gave life to Sojourner Glamping. So just talk a little bit about glamping. Is for those of you who haven't heard about it, most people have experience with camping. Glamping is really high-end camping where the accommodation is already set up for you. We consider it to be camping with resort-style amenities. So the idea is everything you would want from a hotel should exist on a nice, beautiful campground in nature, in a serene environment where you have time to commune with nature, but also connect with friends, family, and other things. So that's really the idea of what we're trying to accomplish with Sojourner. And our mission is to create places to connect with friends, family, and nature, and places that exemplify our values of community, connection, conservation, collaboration, and our love for the outdoors. And I hope if you've learned nothing from the preceding part of this presentation is that I live and breathe community, connection, conservation, and collaboration, and I love the outdoors. I've been hiking in the Shenandoah Valley since 1991. This is an actual picture of Shenandoah National Park, so it's hugely important to both Dionys and I in creating places where people can connect. So the idea is, how do you bring a unique product to the U.S. market? In many ways, bringing the concept of African safari hospitality to the U.S. market outside of national parks. We want to be located at least 2 hours of a major city near a great destination, in this case, Shenandoah National Park. But the idea is to do something completely game-changing. So our tents are unique, tried and trusted, same company I work with. This shot here on the right is actually an Airbnb in Arkansas, but the idea is earth tones to blend in, dark sky lighting so that you don't disturb, create light pollution, but don't disturb the night sky views, and to feel more like a hotel room inside in terms of the way it could be air conditioned, the comfort level, but also that it's not really seen from the outside as well. The architecture we use should blend in with the local surroundings, and we're talking about Greene County, and we're talking about Shenandoah National Park. Any major structure that's not a tent should look and feel like a barn, and should be surrounded by trees to blend in as well. And that's really the goal, is to blend in as much as possible. We want to have nice amenities like infinity pools and spas, decent restaurants and areas focused on wellness, but again, in earth tones and things that really blend in as well. This is just a shot to show some of the look and feel of how the rooms and the color tones that we want. Nice earth tones, really welcoming and inviting to people. We want to offer a camp store that sells local items as well. And again, these don't have to be our items. These can be items that are manufactured and created locally, whether, for example, in Greene, maybe we offered Maybelle's an opportunity to take over some shelves. Excuse me, I'm drinking some water. Local soap makers, local artisans. I'm actually going to the Greene County Farmers Market tomorrow just so that I can meet more artisans. I'm going to go to the Maybelle's vendor event as well to meet folks that could be part of this as well. And then a kids club. And the idea is, as a single dad who's been taking his girls camping for the last 5 years, I usually find that by night 2 camping, I'm pretty much done. And we do real, camping in national parks. And so we're going to create a kids club at Sojourner. And the idea behind this is, let's say the family comes to Sojourner in Greene, but the parents want to go to Stone Mountain Vineyards or another place in the evening or in the afternoon. You can check in the kids at the kids club. We'll have professionals on board to take care of them, give them activities for the day, the afternoon, the morning, and mom and dad can go off, or whoever can go off and have a good time. This is a place where guests can go as well because they'll be able to enjoy. I want to back up for a second. One thing I should also say, it was highly important for us to make sure that Greene County residents could use the amenities, especially the restaurant and the spa. Usually for these types of zonings, the amenities are designed to only be for guests who are staying overnight at the property. For retreats at Sojourner, it's important for us that we become part of the community, and doing that means that residents have access to key amenities. So the spa and the restaurant are going to be key access. We want to figure out if we can do the pool as well. There's some logistics there, but we will do the best we can on that. Last, I just want to end with kind of how this is going to feel. So one important thing is, we're only 8.5 miles from the entrance of Shenandoah National Park. So the mountains you see inside the park are from Sojourner, actually inside Shenandoah National Park. And you've got this belt that comes across the Pacific Epic Trail Club land across Mutton Hollow. And right now there's open field, so it ends here. But the idea of us retreeing this property is that we're actually extending the forest line. We want to have as many trees as possible. One, to create a serene environment, but also to create privacy for our guests on site the property, but then also others. Just for people who are not sure, Route 33 is going off here. This is Dyke Road going off, and this is Mutton Hollow circling around back here. So this is just if you were in a helicopter kind of looking over, this is a kind of a more overview shot that, unless you're in a hot air balloon, no one else will ever see. But I just want to use this particular shot just to kind of point out some things. So this is our front entrance on Mutton Hollow. There's a reception and restaurant here. The main road that vehicles will pass on goes around the perimeter. We have a recreation barn here. We have our back of house office here, family pools and kids club here, spa up here with its own infinity pool, and then some adult pools. And then we basically have units kind of spread throughout this area. What I don't see in this picture up here is 24 acres that we're keeping wild for hiking, and we'll keep under a forest management plan. But the idea is you have more family-friendly units here, and individual accommodation units here as well. The important thing, though, is as you get lower, you start to notice less and less. So by the time you get to Mutton Hollow and the entrance to the property, this is the reception building that you'll see kind of 300 feet down this entrance road. But the idea is you should be seeing nothing but trees. And by the time we'll be showing other views just to show you that most of the neighbors are going to see trees and not anything else. If you're driving down Mutton Hollow, that's pretty much all you are going to see. I want to just thank you for your time here. This is one of my favorite shots from Zaina. This was from an elephant that had taken a dump on, I guess, porch, and she thought it was hilarious, so she took a selfie. So what I used to like to say is, you know, one of the common sayings in the world is when life gives you lemonades, make lemonade. But in Ghana, you can say, you know, when an elephant takes a dump on your porch, the best thing you can at least do is take a selfie. Everything I do is for my family, so I just wanted to end with sharing some shots. The beauty of living and managing at the lodge for 2 years was my girls did summer camp from Arlington with me at the lodge. And so those were some of the most special moments of our lives. So this is me with Chloe and Aaron learning to swim in the Zaina pool. And then this is me with Joseph when he was born, because he was born in Ghana. Because of COVID, he couldn't come to the US. So I was only able to see him twice a year. I'm a Murphy and I like to drink beer. So this is how I knew he was really my son, when he was looking at me taking this drink of club beer, looking at the park. So thank you for your time. Look forward to meeting as many other folks as possible and talking about Sojourner and other adventures. Thank you very much. And